an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Derry Girls, Season 2, Episode 6. In this episode, Bill Clinton is coming to visit Derry. It's big news. Everybody's very excited. But that isn't the biggest event going on in the girls' lives. Also, poor Grandpa Joe. Gonna miss out on a president again. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. Thank you so much to Ashleigh for commissioning this episode. Girl, I don't know what I would have done without having Derry Girls in my life, but it fucking kills me that there's no more of this show now. And I know that they are getting signed on for another episode or another season. And I don't know how many of y'all have heard about this, but they are going to be on a special Great British Bake Off episode that will be airing on New Year's Day, I've heard. I am not clear on whether that air date is when it will be released on Netflix or if that will be a cable release and then Netflix will get it afterward. But I am super duper excited for that. I just can't get over how much this show nails the hilarity and farcical nature of a lot of the storylines while still maintaining like an emotional connection to characters so that you actually give a shit. And I mean, it's really, that is not easy to do. And I always find this to be something that for me connects the most is straight up drama. For me, doesn't usually quite do the trick for getting attached to characters unless I'm given a long time, unless the drama is like kind of something that's stretched out for a while. But I find life in general to be so ridiculous and often hilarious, at the very least absurd, that I think that serves as a bridge for me with characters a lot of the time. If they are doing something that, like, really, when you look at it, they're being a fucking crazy person. But if you think about what you were like at that age, or what you might be like within that situation, or what your reaction would be if you knew like the whole world was watching or that everything depended on this, you can still 100% get why they're reacting the way that they are. And that to me is why comedy like this is like the best way of getting to the heart of who people are, because in essence, at the heart of all of us is somebody being ridiculous. And that's not a bad thing unless it is. But you know what I mean? Like we are all just trying our best, and we have our moments of just like getting hung up on shit that doesn't matter, or not paying attention at all to shit that really matters. And we look back and we're like, why did that not bother me more? You know, I feel like Derry Girls is just such a beautiful little snapshot, especially because these girls are all in high school. And that is just a perfect like breeding ground for problems that look nonsensical. And even if they look that way, if you really think back to what you were like, that shit was real for you. Whether it was nonsensical to the adults or other people in your lives, you felt it, and it was very real. And I think that they just nail it. They just nail it so hard. So good. Okay, so we're going to start with this episode. And yeah, it starts off with the what do you call it? National anthem, the American national anthem. And I know that the national anthem is like the same tune. I think as one of the songs that is like something government related also in Britain, if I'm not mistaken. Is it Star Spangled Banner that's the same, or is it like America the Beautiful or something? But there's some song of ours that's like a nationalist sort of thing that really, it has the exact same tune as something else in Great Britain, and I always find that really funny. So we open the episode, and Mary is panicking, trying to fucking get her house set, because she, for some reason, really thinks that there's a chance Bill Clinton's just going to stop by the house. And this is so precious and wonderful. Of course he's not. Like, as Jerry points out, there is a lot of planning put into presidential stops. There isn't much time to take a notion. But not a soul here is interested in hearing Jerry be a fucking downer. And it's just so great because Jerry is correct. But even as an audience member, I'm like, Jerry, stop, shut up. Let them have their dream. It's fine. You know, it turns out like there's a moment where he thinks that Aaron has some sense and is agreeing with him. And then it turns out that they sent Chelsea Clinton an invite to go to a water park with them. And they genuinely expect this to happen. And that they're being really generous, offering to take Chelsea off their hands by, you know, giving her something to do so that her parents don't have to worry about it. It's just wonderful. Meanwhile, there's this whole thing with Joe. What it turns out happened is that Cullum went and met JFK when he came to visit. And Joe cannot let this stand. The fact that Cullum is ahead of him by one president. He gets involved with his friend. I think his friend's name is Jim, if I'm not mistaken. Jim has a like shortwave radio. And what they plan to do is listen to the radio and see if they can tap into the CIA radio frequency and figure out where the Clintons are staying, and then make their way there to meet Bill. And Joe is like, he finds out that Jimmy told Cullum about it, and he is so irritated because Cullum can't be a part of this. Otherwise, Joe will not get even with him. In terms of meeting presidents, he will still be ahead, and he can't have that. Does this matter? No. Does it make sense to me that it would matter to someone? Yes, it does. As much as it doesn't make any sense, I still get it. And I also love the fact that Cullum is like so insufferable. And I think it's Jerry who says something like, wow, JFK met Cullum. He really did not have much luck, did he? Like, yeah. So yeah, I really enjoy whenever Joe gets like a portion of the story, like he's really invested in. A lot of times Joe is perfectly fine to sort of just go along with whatever's happening. And he has a very forceful personality within that. But he isn't somebody who tends to like necessarily make plot points happen. He just will go wherever the family is going, you know. But I really like that it's himself and his friends that make the difference here and cause Jerry to wind up missing actually seeing Bill Clinton in person, because as far as I can tell, they are like on the other side of the country. They drive until the sun has risen again. Like, they've driven some hours. So I do not anticipate them getting back in time. And yeah, the whole road trip there, you guys, is so funny because Jerry is like, he's aware that this is nonsense. And he keeps trying to appeal to the common sense of the three other men, and they are not fucking interested. Like, they don't want to hear it. And I get it. I get not wanting to hear it, even though you know it's common fucking sense. I really, 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 really do. And for me, that manifests as other behaviors and in different subjects. But the basic premise of my common sense tells me this, I'm going to ignore it. I mean, guys, how many times have you been told if you buy this product, it will solve X problem? When really you know in your heart that X problem is your problem. It's a behavioral problem. And buying a thing will not fix X problem. But you buy it anyway because you just don't want to believe that there's only behavioral shit that will change this, you know, or another diet comes out and you've tried every diet and really in your heart, you know that this is just another name for the same shit, but you're like, no, this is different. This is a different thing. I swear it's a different thing. And then you know, block out the whole like 3/4 of your brain that's yelling at you. This is the same. It's not going to, what are you doing? And that is exactly what that car is as they're driving. Is we've got Jerry as that part of your brain, and then the other men as the ones who are not interested in listening. Melanie says, I loved that Joe defended column listing presidents from Jerry as if to say, you can't make fun of my friend, only I can make fun of him. Exactly. It's like Erin last episode when she got irritated at May for like slagging on Jenny, and they're only allowed to do that. You can't just show up. You have to have put the time in, as Erin says. Except that they did put the time in with Cole. But yeah, it's a really, the fucking columns dialogue. I don't know who writes it, but it is perfection. You guys, you should have heard the way that Owen hollered next to me. He's going through all of the different presidents and talking about them in these extremely particular ways. And at one point he says, the bearded fella that knocked the head on the old slave free. And I think it's Jerry who's like, Abraham Lincoln. He's like, that's the one. And Owen fucking lost his mind. Knocked the head on the old slavery. Oh my God. So good. And even at one point, Joe, like Cullum says, you know, Bill Clinton's the 42nd president of the United States, which is interesting because John F. Kennedy was 35 or whatever he is. And they say, okay, well, why is that interesting, Cullum? And he just says, I don't know. Maybe it's not. I just sort of say things to get myself from one sentence to another. You know how it is, Joe. I love that. I love I'm going to admit I didn't really have a point here. And I'm also going to involve you and make it seem like you get it. You know what this is like. I don't think he does, Cullum. I don't think he does. But okay, sure. Meanwhile, here comes a plot point that I did not see coming. So first of all, there is an amazing, and by amazing, I mean horrifying song again at the beginning of the school day. And it's again Jenny. I have to believe at this point that it's just that Jenny is not a good singer and that's part of her character. I don't know if the actress isn't a good singer or if she's purposely like, it could be a number of things. It could be she's not a good singer and they are having her sing partially because of that, because they know that it's like perfect. She is a good singer, but she fakes being a bad singer, or she is a bad singer and they were putting her in the position to sing for the script and she turned out to be really terrible. And they were like, oh, this is way better. No. Hold on. What, guys, every episode she gets a song. Can we do this? Can we make her do this? Yes. Okay. We're definitely going with this. It's so frustrating too, because her friend Ashleigh, who's behind her playing the piano, like she's got a decent voice and she can play, But it's always Jenny who's like standing up front, taking center stage, and she is just the worst. And the whole, like, the lyrics of this, she's singing. I love the looks on everyone's faces as well as this is playing out. Christmas time, mistletoe and wine, children singing Christian rhyme, which I'm like, you couldn't do better than that, lyric writers. With logs on the fire and gifts on the tree, which, like, it sounds really weird, but I know that did used to be a thing, that you would like tie the gifts packages to the tree, but it just sounds so strange nowadays. A time to rejoice and in the good that we see. And she rings the little triangle at the end. And it's so embarrassing, y'all. Oh, it's so embarrassing. She's so terrible at this. Ashleigh's here. Hi, Ashleigh. So yeah, this opening is followed by Sister Michael saying it was a fitting rendition of what I consider to be the most god-awful song ever written. And guys, I love when my Sister Michael says something like this, and then the camera turns to the audience. There is always someone in the audience who's really, really trying not to laugh. And this time, I believe it's Michelle. It could just be a character thing that she's trying to do. But I am in love with this moment of her looking up at the ceiling. She kind of bites her lips and looks away. And in my head, that is that actress. Like, for some reason, it just hit her this time around. And she's trying really hard. And it's threatening to break out. So Sister Michael begins this speech about the fact that tomorrow is a very special day. Schools across the city are treating it as a public holiday. The president is coming to visit. And I don't think many of you understand, because you're so young, what a big deal this is. But it would have been unimaginable just a few months ago. And I, for one, can barely believe it. And there's this music in the background as she's saying all this that's like, like really like emphasizing what a big deal this is, this moment, this feeling of peace and oneness. And then fucking record scratch. I mean, people in this place stop killing each other for 5 minutes and the whole world loses the absolute run of itself. This visit concerns me for a number of reasons, girls, but mostly because I am scared it will give the Pope ideas, and that's the last thing I need. No, Our Lady Immaculate will play no part in this farce. I expect to see you all here tomorrow morning. Business as usual. Is that clear? And it's turns out to be the greatest thing in the entire world, because what it is, Sister Michael herself isn't planning to go. We see her walking around the hallways of the school in her sweater, just, you know, as she be. She's not like saying all of this and planning to just go on her own anyway. But it does seem that she is saying all of this in an effort to make a point and fully expects everyone to ignore that point and wants that. And when you see her walking through the school on the day of, and she sees that there is nobody else in, like, it's really quite a lovely moment, to be honest. Like, the school bus rolls up. There's nobody on it. She's walking through the school and is peering into all of the classrooms. And she has a look on her face, not exactly of, like, I don't even want to say satisfaction. It's just sort of her being like, all right, well, I guess that's how it's going to be. And we see Ashleigh and Jenny sitting alone at their desks in this classroom, waiting for someone to turn up. Not even the teachers are here, I should point out. It's not like, you know, class is starting and they're like taking attendance and nobody knows where the students are. The teachers were also like, yeah, I don't think so, sister. Sorry, bye. And Jenny says something about, what is everyone playing at? And Ashleigh says, what are we playing at? For once the world will be watching us for all the right reasons. Oh, I keep saying Ashleigh, but her name is Ashleigh. Ashleigh, terrible name. I'm sorry. It's terrible. But yeah, she says, you'll get in trouble. And her friend just says, I don't care, and walks out. And it's a lovely moment. It really is, of her just like being free from this. And Sister Michael walks in and sees Jenny sitting there all alone, not even a teacher, and says, oh, for God's sake, Jenny. Which, again, guys, it's beautiful to me that Sister Michael is taking the Lord's name in vain. Ashleigh, says Lee, says Ashleigh. Ashlyn or Ashleen. Guys, I'm sorry. This is not exciting radio, but I just wanted to get it right. And yeah, Sister Michael tells Jenny, you need to learn when to push back. And Jenny says, what? And she just tells her, go, get out, go now. And I really enjoy this moment. She watches Jenny look around and get up and leave. And then she glances around the empty classroom and smirks. And so initially you're not totally sure that this is what she wanted. But after that moment, you're like, no, good for y'all. Fuck me. Like, this is a big important thing. And I'm glad that you all give a shit enough. And is Sister Michael like the absolute best, or is that just me? I want to be your friend so bad. So now let's talk about the main event here. First of all, Claire is the one that's like, yeah, we should definitely skip school because this is a very big fucking deal. And I can't understand what Sister Michael is thinking. This is literal history in the making that she's asking us to miss out on, and for what? And you know, when Claire decides that it's time to break rules, that like, and it's not just her going along with rule breaking because she's too impressionable or a coward or whatever, shit has gotten real. So she's like out, they go to get flags from Dennis's Wee Shop. I said in another episode that I remembered that the name of his shop was super funny and I couldn't remember what it was. And then I got a chance to see the title of it again. And I was like, oh, right. It's so perfect. Dennis's Wee Shop. And he has bought a load of incorrectly printed American flags. It was a beautiful callback in a way to the woman that they hitchhiked down to see the concert with, who has all of those shirts printed incorrectly that she's planning on trying to like sell to people. It is a pink, purple, and white flag because the colors are not like it. You know what it looks like? You guys will know exactly what I'm talking about. When you are shopping on like a kind of a cheapo clothing website, or if you go to an Amazon listing for clothing that's kind of like lower rent, and they offer the same piece of clothing in like 12 different colors, sometimes you will see that they have used the same image of a model wearing an outfit, but they put a filter over it because they need it to not be red, but to be purple. So they like use a ton of like saturation. They up the saturation. They like up the, or lower the warmth and up the coolness. And they change like the shading of it in order to get what is really a red dress to look purple. And you can often tell that's what's going on because the color just looks strange. And oftentimes the model wearing it her skin tone will look really weird as well. You know, like she'll just look very red. And it's one of those things that I like. It's probably you guys have seen like the memes that go around where there's like, is this shoe pink and white or turquoise and whatever? And it's so obvious to me when you're looking at it that is a pink and white shoe that's in weird lighting. Like, that's all it is. And that's what it is with these sorts of posts. That is the deal with this American flag. It looks like somebody put a weird filter on it and they printed it on like printer paper with this weird filter on it, or that their printer printed it out even though it was out of red. So it came out way too bluish. That kind of thing. And also half the stars are missing. Less than half. So the fucking square that the 50 stars are in is like a third empty at the bottom. They just stop. The stars just stop. Guys, Ashleigh, please tell me that this is based on a real thing. I know that there has been a lot of the show that I didn't realize was based on true events. I want to believe so much that some factory, like in Ireland, in honor of the president coming, was printing these up and printed a bunch of dud ones, and that's like a thing that really happened. Ashleigh wrote, I was so sorry to hear you guys lost some states. You know what? We should. We need to have a secession. We need the country needs to split, and we need the portion that's interested in being run as a theocracy. Go ahead and live in those states, and you can be a theocracy, and that's fine. That's what you want, then that's where you can go. And we will provide transportation and rehousing assistance to those who are not interested in living in a theocracy to move to the states that are not interested as well. I think that would be very good for us. A lot of people talk about like the South just seceding, and it's like, that's not the solution, because just because, you know, there are a lot of stereotypes about the racism in the South, and those stereotypes come from a real place. Like, don't get me wrong, but the South is not the problem. There is plenty going on in all of our states. We just need to, you know, each of us figure out our own thing and change the entire way the country works and split it off into pieces. That's all. What? So they argue with Dennis about these flags. And I love Aaron just being like, I'm just not sure this happened. I think we would have heard about it. And finally, Dennis just screams at them to get out. I mean, has there been a single episode of this show in which they have successfully completed a purchase at Dennis's wee shop without being screamed at and chased out of the shop? Because I feel like that has not happened ever. So, okay. Now we're going to get to the heart of this episode, which is what's going on with James. I said when James turned up in episode 1, how fucked up it is that his mother just dropped him off. I was hopeful that there was a really good reason for this, but as we find out, it doesn't seem that's the case. His mother just didn't really want to deal with him. And there's this amazing thing because she rolls up on them and offers for them to hop into her car. And for some reason, rather than just saying no and walking away, Aaron and Claire both begin screaming about stranger danger. This person's trying to abduct us. Claire starts yelling fire. Eventually, we get this stranger who is trying to abduct us is on fire from Orla. This woman does not like roll up and introduce herself. And James and Michelle are not at the front of the group. So this lady just did not handle her shit super well and introduce herself in a normal way. But she looks at them like they're crazy. And don't get me wrong, their reaction is insane. But this is like a really good example of the overall trend of her behavior. Because this lady is not handling her shit very well, but then wants to turn around and like treat everybody from Derry like they are trash. And James, when he sees his mother, It's a shock. He did not know she was coming. And that, to me, was the nail in the coffin. I didn't need to know what all had happened to cause him to have to come to Ireland to live with his family. I didn't need to hear anything about any more details. Once I realized that his mother showed up and had not so much as sent a fucking postcard or called ahead of time or done anything. Well, they don't have a phone, so granted. But nevertheless, there was a way that she could have let them know first. She does not do that. That was it. I just knew that she was garbage. Like, as a parent, you do not get to do this to your children. And this is something a lot of parents treat their kids as if the children are not actually full independent human beings. They treat them like they are weird sort of like photocopies of real people that have yet to fully develop. And it's like, maybe they haven't fully developed into adults, but they have psyches, they have full personhood, despite the fact that they have not yet reached adulthood necessarily. They are individual people, and they don't belong to you. And a lot of parents treat their children like property, like you are mine and therefore you will do XYZ. And they treat their children like, because of the fact that they are not yet an adult, they don't have a right to privacy, or they don't have a right to make their own decisions about certain things that like, for example, physical contact. There's a lot of like pressuring kids to give your grandpa a hug because that's polite. And you're teaching your kid that they don't have bodily autonomy and don't get to say that they don't want to hug somebody who maybe makes them uncomfortable. And small lessons like that, I think, add up a lot. So this whole thing with James, his mom just turning up after dumping him, and people use that term a few times throughout this episode, say that she dumped him, and they are not incorrect. Just out of the blue. And not only, like, it's not just that she turns up out of the blue. She shows up at his group of friends outside of like a little shop. She doesn't even like go to the house and meet him at home. It's like a real fucking guerrilla sneak attack maneuver that is 100% on her terms in a way that's really, really unpleasant. And this leads to this whole thing later with Aunt Sarah talking about her eyebrows, because Erin comes home and she says something about like, I've got some big news. And her mother sort of is really dismissive and is just like, I'm not interested in hearing about your high school gossip. But then she mentions that James's mother, and I think her name is Catherine, is back. And all of a sudden Mary is like on her feet. Like, are you serious? I can't believe she has the fucking gall. And it turns out that she grew up in Derry. I wasn't totally sure about this, because James is like got a different accent and everything. And I was like, well, maybe he got that from his mother, and maybe his aunt isn't related by blood. But it turns out that she is. She grew up in Derry. They know who she is. And Sarah is obsessed with this woman's eyebrows. Now, her eyebrows are not that great. I don't know if that is supposed to be part of the joke or not, or if it is just that, she's like, it's the 90s and her eyebrows look very 90s. And so to us right now, they're not that awesome. But she has got a serious, like, what's the word? You've kept them eyebrows ship shape, so you have credit where credit's due. They are pretty good, but they are like, her whole rest of her face is so smug that it's hard for me to like enjoy them. Oh my God. Ashleigh just commented she went to England for an abortion, as Michelle told us, and James in season 1. I forgot all about that, Ashleigh. Oh, God, I forgot all about this. So, his mother, it turns out, is about to start her own sticker company. Bespoke self-adhesive labels. Y'all, there are a couple of great things that happen here. First of all, they're talking about her divorce and the fact that her husband just started to get too controlling. And then she's like, he was just, I don't know what it was. He would be like, who are you going? Why were you having dinner with that man, Catherine? Why are you always coming home so late, Catherine? I couldn't deal with it. And, it's clear she was fucking around. She's being very obvious about the fact that she was fucking around. And she is not interested in being in a relationship with somebody who is not fine with her fucking around. And it's like the most, like, she has no self-awareness or understanding that everybody else knows precisely what was going on the instant that she begins to talk. And as she's like talking about the bespoke labels thing, all I could hear was the talk of people who like are trying to do their own like multi-level marketing scheme stuff where they're selling like essential oils or beach body fucking kits, or what are those leggings that everybody was selling for a while before the fucking business pretty much imploded, or candle stuff, Scentsy. There are like a billion of these. The difference is that she's not selling a thing that's like being manufactured by somebody else and she's selling it. It seems like she designs the things, but it's also like totally unclear who she's selling to or what like her business model is. And she does not appreciate the fact that they keep calling them stickers instead of bespoke self-adhesive labels. So this whole thing is so classic. Like, listen, as somebody who does what I do for a living, I fully recognize that when you work for yourself, it's a really tricky thing to convince anybody that you have a real job. It is like, you can't like work from home and do something that is unconventional without people sort of treating you as if you aren't really trying or really working. So I try and be as aware of that as I can when I hear these sorts of things, and give people the benefit of the doubt. But the real key to knowing whether or not somebody is full of shit is moments like this, where how seriously do you take what you're doing? And by this, I don't mean, do you take your job seriously? I mean, how seriously do you take the image that you're putting off and what people say about what you do? For example, calling them stickers makes her look like she wants to slap them both. But if somebody was like, so you watch TV and talk about it? I mean, is that reductive of what I do? Yeah. Is it also essentially true? Yes, it is. I mean, essentially it is true. I would be like, I would understand in the moment that somebody was trying to be reductive probably if they said it that way, but I also wouldn't be like offended by it. I would be offended by them depending on how that was said to me, but I wouldn't correct them and be like, not exactly. I'm a podcaster, like trying to change just the details of the language. And this is the thing, like there are a lot of people out there who they want to call themselves businessmen, businesswomen, entrepreneurs, boss ladies, whatever. And really what they're doing is just slinging garbage products for a third party. And that's the fucking giveaway to me, is if you need to use a lot of different language to lend an air of legitimacy to your work that isn't the default of the way people talk about your work, then maybe your work isn't that legit. And if you are just starting out, it's going to be tough. Like, that's another, I try and give people the benefit of the doubt. But when she says something about how she broke up with her husband and James is going to be the only man in her life now. Ooh, alarm bells galore. So many red flags. Like, that should not be the language that a mother is using to talk about her son, first of all. And I would be extremely interested in hearing from some grown men who were raised by mothers who used this sort of language, because I can't help but feel like this is a woman using her son to fill a void. And it could go either way with Catherine. They are all talking about her just wanting free labor. And I feel like that's another side of the same coin. Probably if she was with a partner, she would be treating him the same way as James in wanting free labor from them as well. She'd probably find somebody who was a bit of a pushover and would be willing to like take that on for her. James, for his part, it's so heartbreaking, guys, because he is really happy that his mother is home, or that she's back and going to take him home. And I feel like Ashleigh says, really? I took it more along the lines of he's the man of the house. Same thing to me, Ashleigh. A woman telling people that her son, a teenager, is, quote, man of the house is gross to me. He should not be in that role. He's your child. And to me, they're like, I can understand people saying that and trying to be like, that's a compliment because she's like treating you as if you are that, like your opinions really matter. But I almost always connect that kind of using that phrase with somebody whose attitude is they rely too much on their kid for emotional labor in a way. And this is a thing that I went through a little bit. You know, my mother considered me a friend, and it's a different thing. You know, his mother is looking for him for actual labor, but I was expected to be the sounding board for my mother when she was going through her divorce. And, you know, that's my dad. It's not appropriate. And it was true. I was treated as if I was just a friend that she could tell things to, because she didn't really have any of her own friends. And there was nobody out there for her to just go to except her therapist, you know, and she didn't do that consistently initially. So to me, there are turns of phrase that we tend to like glorify and make it sound like it's some sort of compliment to the child, and that we're like, we really respect them and we're giving them more responsibility. But in my mind, they are all sorts of camouflage for the fact that the parents don't really have their own shit together, and they don't have a resource or a network of people that they can rely on for support. And so they're turning to their kid, which is not fair. Ashleigh says, yeah, that's fair. I took it more so as you thinking there was something sexual there. No. Oh God. No, but I can understand why you thought that. So James is an interesting case. I'm going to go through the overall, everything that happens. So the girls, it turns out like Claire has been at the front of the front, what do you call it? Railing, fencing of the area where Clinton is going to give his speech. She's been saving a spot. She got in a fight with a fucking child and has like a cut on her lip trying to save a space for all of her friends. It's wonderful. She's like rabid in this scene. And James comes up and is like, hey guys, I have some news. I'm actually leaving. And they're like, Ashleigh says, do you remember the last episode where you said you wouldn't want to see Claire in a fight because she'd be fucking vicious? I forgot that I said that. I called it. She's bonkers. I love her so much. I relate to Claire probably the most out of anybody on this show. And James tells them all that he's leaving. And they're just like, what? When? And he's like, nowish. And fucking turns around to get in the taxi to go right away. And everybody is like floored when he says this. It's a really moving moment. Now, I have seen some folks saying that they felt like this was not really earned by the show because everybody has been so mean to James. And in my opinion, that's the point. Is we are, as human beings, woefully unaware of what is really important to us most of the time until it's gone, right? Like, and them being mean to James, I mean, James is a weird outlier in their lives. He is not local. He's not from Derry. He is not a girl. And he doesn't understand customs here or a lot of the uses of different like turns of phrase. He doesn't relate to their obsessions with certain things. And they all focus on how different he is and what a weirdo he is far more than anything else. And the truth is, as human beings, oftentimes that is how we react to somebody in our midst who is extremely different. We are just like, are you serious? How do you not get this? And especially like there are instances, for example, in season 1 where they're obsessed with that chip shop and he's just like, it's super greasy. It's gross. I don't understand why you guys like it so much. Moments like that where he's just like bursting to just be, I fucking don't get you. And it feels to them like a bit of an attack. Like, what the fuck is your problem, dude? You know, as well, there are all of the like moments of just treating him like he's not really a part of things. There's the fucking just last episode, them being like, all right, well, if May joins the group, I guess James is going to have to find somewhere else to go. But the thing is, that is part of the point to me, is that they all are treating him like he is one of them in the way that they are treating him like he is not one of them. And I don't know if that makes sense, but there is a treating him like family thing that happens. And this is like a messed up thing, but we give family the hardest time out of everybody, right? So in a way, the fact that they all just like mercilessly tease him and give him such a hard time is part of the evidence to me that they see him as family. You know, they aren't exactly sweet to one another that often either. The closest that we get to like moments of real sweetness and support are things like Aaron offering to go with Claire to the prom, but then she immediately dumps Claire for this dude that she's into. So like a lot of the moments of solidarity are not, they don't really turn out to be solidarity. There is them standing together as a group in the end always, but there isn't a lot of verbal affection going on between them. It's just things like they all together get caught trying to flush scones down the toilet and they all go with the same story. They all together are on stage trying to get Jenny out of there before she gets covered in red paint or tomato sauce or whatever it is. They are always a group working towards a goal, even though throughout the whole previous part of the episode, they were like at each other's throats for whatever reasons. So the fact that they are so mean to James, I understand some people like taking issue with this, but this feels like such a real thing to me. There is always somebody in your crew of friends that everybody rags on more than other people. And that might not be kind. It might not be particularly healthy even, but it's reality. And sometimes that person is like more okay with it than other times. Sometimes they accept it and they even sort of enjoy it as its own thing. And that is something I have seen a lot, where somebody like almost gets upset if people are being too nice to them, because they start to like suspect that there's something. So when people go back to giving them shit, then they feel more comfortable. Again, I'm not saying that this is healthy, but it's a weird expression of affection that I think is very real. So Michelle chases him and tells him that he's a fucking Derry girl, and what is he doing? And she says, like, I know you love it here. And he's like, I don't know that I do. I think I might have Stockholm syndrome. To which she says something like, catch yourself on, you've never even been to Switzerland. Which, precious Michelle, never change. But she tells him being a Derry girl is a state of mind. And she also is like, you know that she's not going to be there for you, man. She wants you for something very specific. And she's going to let you down because that's what she does. And James is like, she wants me to be partner in her business. And Michelle's like, oh, okay, there it is. See, she wants free labor. That's what it's about. And I kind of love the fact that Michelle is like looking out for him in this way. It's like there's cruelty to the way that she just will say things around him. Like the fucking thing up, by the way, your mom wanted to get an abortion. But there's also something like the underlying subtext there is like, I want you to know what your mom's like. You know, there's a bit of that there of just like, you should know, by the way. And this moment where she's like, you don't need to do this. And him saying, she's my mom, Michelle. And he walks away. This is a really tough moment to watch because so many people really subscribe to I am family and therefore I have an obligation to take the bullshit this person is giving me. And it's so sad. I have a lot of friends who have very toxic family that they do not choose to cut from their lives for one reason or another. I don't like to make broad judgments because everybody's situation is different. And sometimes cutting people out is simply not an option, really. But a lot of times it is an option. It's just much more difficult and painful than the person particularly wants to deal with. And so they decide that they would rather endure that than the drama of deciding to cut the person off. And it depends on your family. Some people's families, if you decide to cut a person off, you're going to have a bunch of like aunts and cousins calling you being like, why are you being so shitty to your mom? You know, like, why are you acting like this? That's your mother. Don't you even respect? She raised you, and they're going to guilt trip the shit out of you. And so in that respect, I understand wanting to just cope rather than deal with a bunch of people basically telling you that you're a bad, ungrateful person. I get it. It sucks. And I don't think it's the right decision in the long run, but I understand it in the short run. And James, again, is a child. He's very young. And his mother fucking abandoned him at his aunt's and then shows up and wants him back. It is only natural for a kid his age who hasn't got anybody else to be just so delighted that she has returned and seems to want him in her life again, that he would give her another chance right away. It's just, it makes sense, you know, completely. And I love that the show chooses to have him be like, no, you know what? No, I don't know at all what Michelle's mom is going to make of this because she thought that James was going away and now he's like apparently here permanently. I don't know how this works. But James is in the car with his mother and she's looking in the mirror, fixing her makeup, saying, I'm sure you're glad to get out of this dive. I know I am. And his acting in that moment, you guys, it's very moving. It's So first of all, there's an Enya song playing over the whole thing, which just like, I don't know what it is about Enya, but you could just fucking make me cry with just putting on Enya in the background of any scene. So that's probably a lot of what's responsible for my reaction to this. But he looks at his mother as she says this with this like real, it's a combination of like being disgusted with her and that feeling of like heartsick, you know, the moment of somebody saying something to you that confirms your worst fears in just a sentence. They like say the exact wrong thing. I had this happen with my ex-husband one time. He said something to me that was just like, it was everything that I was afraid of. And I will never forget. It felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Like it was just, you know, and that's the moment for me when she says that is he looks at her like, fuck, like he knows he shouldn't be here. And it's a combination of now I need to decide what to do, and I need to decide before it's too late. And also I need to find time to cope with the realization that my mother is just as shit as everybody been saying, which is not a fun thing to deal with either. Meanwhile, all the girls are up at the front of the line where the president's about to show up, not reacting at all because they're also distracted by the fact that fucking James just suddenly is gone. And they were not ready for that at all. And they don't know how to process that. He was like a part of things for them. And it's just too weird for him to suddenly just decide to leave. Like that's how it goes. And I love the camera pan across everybody cheering and getting really excited about the president and them just like staring. And we see him running towards this like bridge, and Orla turns around and she shouts, I see him, I see him. And Aaron's like, you're facing the wrong way, Orla. And she's like, no, I see James. And they all turn around, and even though see, it's happening. Even though Claire got there at 5 o'clock in the morning and got in a fist fight with an actual child, she abandons her spot just as readily as the rest of them to go and run and hug James and be so happy that he has decided to stay. And they don't even turn around and go back to see Bill Clinton. They walk away as a group together to go hang out because that's the thing that really matters. And like, part of me is like, y'all are definitely going to regret it when you did, like, Bill Clinton was here and you didn't see him. Like, there's definitely going to be a part of you that's like, oh, James, I love you, buddy. But like, it was Bill Clinton. Why didn't we turn around and take you with us? Like, what are we doing? Another part of me, though, I like to imagine that they all sort of realized that, like, they were really shitty to him in a lot of ways and that they should make some time with him. And I'm not trying to say that they're suddenly going to be nice to him. I don't want them to be suddenly nice to him. In season 3, if they're treating him very differently than they have been, that's no fun. You know, I think it's part of his character is the fact that he's like the weirdo outsider that they are always going to be like, James, shut the fuck up. What are you talking about? And I'm fine with that. And I think James is fine with that too. I think that's the point, is that he's kind of like, yeah, I mean, I don't belong. And that's part of what makes me belong, is that we all just acknowledge that I am not just somebody that y'all like use the way that my mother would use me. I'm still a part of things. And I don't know. I found this so moving. It was such a weird thing for me to like just cry over. But all of their acting in that moment and the contrast of the crowd cheering around them and them all being still in shock at the fact that he is gone. And also Michelle getting really vulnerable in a way that she hasn't been and telling him that she cares about him and she doesn't want him to go after being super shitty to him all the time. It's just so real. Some of us just have trouble with being honest about how much we care about a person. I have been working on it. It's not easy for me. I tend to be very abrasive and make a lot of jokes the way that Michelle does, rather than open myself up to somebody emotionally and make it so that I'm vulnerable. And I don't want this to like permanently change all of their relationships. I don't want this to be like, and from then on, he was really like one of their closest friends. Like, he is a close friend, but you don't have to treat them a certain way for that to be true in the script. Does that make sense? Friendship is complicated, especially when you're in a group dynamic. That's all I'm saying, you know? And I really like that Michelle seems to like have gotten the read on his mother correctly right out of the gate as well. I don't know. She's looking out for him in a way that his mother does not look out for him. She desires his company for the sake of it in a way that his mother does not. There is just a lot about their dynamic that is not necessarily an adequate substitution, but a bit of a substitution for what is missing, like R.E., his parents. And it's kind of sweet. I really want to know what the deal is with his dad, though. Like, where the hell is that guy? Who knows? But, Ashleigh just wrote, he's a Derry girl in all caps. Given that it was in with the rest of this episode, we haven't really touched on it, but I wonder if anyone's asked Chelsea Clinton if she's seen this. Oh, that's funny. I love when they're talking about how she needs to wear a swim cap to the water park because they're very strict about that, and how she has really got quite a full head of hair on her, which damn if she don't. Ashleigh says, I just wanted to say thank you for your coverage of the show. It's been a blast, and I can't wait for season 3 to see your thoughts. I can't either. Thank you so much for commissioning this, Ashleigh. This show is so special, and I don't know that I would have watched it otherwise, you know, I really don't. So it's just, I'm so delighted. It's so nice to have a show that's like really emotionally satisfying while also being hilarious. It's just wonderful. So yeah, what a good season finale. I loved it. I loved it so much. All right, everybody. Well, thank you again. I hope that you've enjoyed the coverage, and I will be seeing you eventually with a new episode. So until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.